his reputation is over.
They're going to show that video over and over and over about what happens to women that won't change their story.
The Diddy case is not about just a hotel video. It's not even about domestic violence. But this case and what it means, what it stands for, is by far something very much darker. This includes even for Hollywood and celebrities. This case is going to make a change one way or the other. So let's get into it and break it all down. Everyone is obsessed with a hotel video, and don't get me wrong, it is definitely awful and absolutely needed to be shown via court or media or both. The video alone, regardless of what charges there are, should be paid his dues for that. Well, in the settlement with Cassie, that is what happened. Unfortunately, there are people who think that this was done all wrong.
How you feel about Cassie testifying against Diddy?
Yes, sir. First of all, it should be absolutely illegal for Cassie to testify against Diddy. When he paid her off, I believe there was an NDA involved in that situation. He was paying her off to shut up and go away. After all the money he paid her, after her signing an NDA, how can she then be brought back into court to testify against them?
A way around NDAs for the party, such as Cassie, to be compelled to testify under oath in a criminal or civil case, a private confidentiality agreement, such as an NDA, does not prevent being compelled by law to give testimony as part of a legal proceeding. In a criminal case or before a grand jury, the government can compel the testimony through the use of a subpoena. A person with relevant knowledge can be forced to testify by a subpoena, and a private NDA is not a defense to be given a testimony that is compelled by law. Now, some think that because she got a settlement, she should not be a witness in the case. What is getting missed, though, is that the prosecution as well as the defense can subpoena anyone that they want. If the prosecution is using a piece of evidence for their case, that could be something that Cassie already used to settle over, then of course they're going to call her and even subpoena her to testify. It's not her fault that the prosecution is using what she most likely could have used to reach the settlement with Diddy. It's not her nor anyone else's fault because they are called to come to court. It is Diddy's choices, allegedly, that he did this, including choices behind closed doors. Just because it's in your bedroom or behind closed doors, where no one can see, does not mean that you are excluded from the law. In fact, so far, he's gotten less than a slap on the wrist up to this point, in my opinion. I would not be surprised if there were lives by his hands that have been taken or by his order. I'm not saying that it's true. I'm just saying I would not be surprised if it were proven true. Not all, but many NDAs are actually used to protect criminal or abusive behavior in exchange for payment. However, you cannot legally buy a victim or witness's silence with respect to testimony about criminal acts. Now let's discuss even more about the legal justice system into this. And again, there have been some that have said that he should have been given bail, that Diddy should have been allowed to be bailed.
He's already in jail. Y'all didn't give him bail, which y'all also think is a violation of his constitutional rights.
I mean, you mean to tell me that a man of Diddy's stature, his finance, his capability to leave the country, just like the Carters have done, and other A-list celebrities have already done, as soon as he was arrested, if not just before his arrest, that somehow means that he should have been also given bail? You do not give bail to someone who can easily pay it off and also have the money to jump and run out of the country. It means he is considered, quote, a flight risk. If you are a flight risk, meaning that you have the capability to leave the country, then the judge does not give bail. I do not doubt that if Diddy was given this, he would have done just that. Yes, it's only speculation, but that risk could not be taken, and the judge indeed made the correct call. There is clearly a history between Jay-Z and Diddy. There's clearly a history between Diddy and many celebrities. Now, someone who Jay-Z claimed to be a best friend or like a brother, who suddenly he went up in silence. When it comes to Hollywood and something bad that happens or comes out, those who go silent, I truly speculate, are not being silent because they know nothing, but they are being silent and they ran out of the country like dogs with tails between their legs because they do know something. They do have information, allegedly. On top of that, a lot of websites that had the information has now been scrubbed and wiped clean. And I do not call that coincidence. It is beyond suspicion. That alone in itself is suspicious. Now, when you include the fact that there is silence and that they up and left the country, it just adds to it. As some may say, oh, yes, it is a coincidence. But when coincidences happen one after another, it is no longer a coincidence. And in Hollywood, silence means guilt. And I have to say allegedly, and that these are my opinions. But if you take a look at everything between Hollywood, not just through Diddy, but in general, it all quickly stacks up. And then when you look at what it is against Diddy and celebrities, it almost triples the stack. Allegedly. Beyonce had made posts such as on Instagram or Twitter of supporting or giving shout outs to Diddy, which now have been completely removed. And they were removed post-raid. Beyonce didn't just distance herself, she's doing a full-on memory hold on him. If she thought that he was innocent, then why the sudden deletion? If she knows he's guilty, why run and hide and not help in the case? Allegedly, there is or was a legal document showing Roc Nation representing Cassie in 2019. However, when we check, we see that it has been scrubbed and removed. If Roc Nation lawyers did or were representing Cassie, that means every legal move in her case went to the Carter's team, allowing them to know anything and everything instantly. Title financials showing $28 million to Diddy's Revolt TV, and again, has been suspiciously removed. Leaked Beyonce tour invoice, $1.2 million to Bad Boys artist. Now, suddenly this page is unavailable, and again, these coincidences just keep adding up. Now, do you think that this is suspicious? Allegedly, Roc Nation NDAs are at least 87 pages long. The source was from New York Times. Again, it has been removed and scrubbed. And New York Times, for a large majority of people, is actually considered a reliable source. So why was this removed as well? It's another page, it's another source, it's another piece of information that has been scrubbed and wiped, and no information being given as to why. Allegedly, the Kardashians, who profit off trauma, have even went MIA. And when the tramps of Hollywood suddenly disappear on you, doesn't that mean that you're radioactive? Allegedly, flight logs with Diddy and Jay-Z that shared jets at least 17 different times. The source of the private jet tracker. Let's take a look. Isn't it ironic that it's been blocked? I mean, I can understand for future flights not being mentioned due to security for a celebrity such as Beyonce and Jay-Z, but the aftermath? The flights after and you're no longer in those areas? When the suspicions keep adding, you no longer look nor appear innocent. And this is exactly how the Carters are presenting themselves. They are completely appearing 1,000% non-innocent. They are appearing 1,000% guilty, and as if they have information on something about Diddy, and they wish to remain silent because they don't want to be involved. They don't want to be included in the shit with Diddy because it could also hurt their career and hurt their image. At the same time, if they don't and he is free, then he has no reason to come after them. So either way, they are trying to cover their hide instead of doing what the right thing is to do and to open their mouth and say what they know. Instead, they jump bailed out of country, went MIA, went silent, which tells a lot of people, I know something and I'm scared of letting the public know because I know you will not accept it. If they did fly together 17 different times, then it means that not just did they party together, but they flew together. They shared the same airspace, the same secrets, and who knows what else that they shared. And these A-list celebrities going off their private islands or going MIA, this is just another way to keep them from being subpoenaed, or rather subpoena free. I think when you pull all these allegations together with the facts of the removal pages and their silence, this is clearly meaning of guilt or of something that they know enough that could help in the case. And in my opinion, these celebrities are hiding to stay silent because they don't want the public to know that they knew as well, or even condoned it, or allowed it, or watched it themselves, or just knew and decided to say nothing. They are still saying nothing. I think that these celebrities who are remaining silent needs to be blacklisted from Hollywood indefinitely. Now back to the case. Cassie testified that Diddy paid her bills to control her, took everything so that she had to rely on him, told her how to dress, would give her a record deal, told her where to go and when, what to do and what not to do. And for those who are trying to say, well, why does she stay so long? Well, if you watch the same hotel video that was shown in court that everybody has seen through the media, she indeed did try to escape. She tried multiple times in a single video to get away. So for those that are saying, why didn't she leave? I just busted your argument. And I also highly recommend that you do some research in psychology and the Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is a coping mechanism to a captive or abusive situation. People develop positive feelings toward their captors or abusers over time. This condition applies to situations including child abuse, coach-athlete abuse, relationship abuse, and sex trafficking. Treatment includes psychotherapy such as talk therapy and medications if needed. Her testimony shows and explains how he would keep her in places like a hotel, his home, or even her home. And she would be told by Diddy, allegedly, when I call, you better be home. So it didn't matter if she went to her own home. If she didn't do what he said, he could easily get to her and punish her for not following his orders. This is a clear textbook of trafficking, plain and simple. What the prosecution is proving is that he turned women and possibly men into his own personal property. Humans are not property, and those who make humans property are by definition trafficking. Trafficking equals power, not just violence. Now, Diddy's attorney said that Diddy flew to New York and turned himself in. But let's face it, Diddy knows how to play in the public's eye. He's been in court before, and he knows how to play the game. Turning yourself in, yet proclaiming that you're also innocent when over half the people in Hollywood who supposedly supported you are now suddenly silent. Not to mention he's trying to say that this is not trafficking, but his attorney is trying to say that this is just a freaky man behind closed doors. I'll give you that he went to New York and turned himself in, but I'm not ignoring the video in which he's dragging a woman back to his room where an escort is waiting, and again, doing it against her will and dragging her back. Forcing someone into your room with a third party waiting, and even without violence, someone of power like Diddy can force someone against their will without being violent or abusive. It is just in their money and power to do so. The defense have tried to spin their narrative that Diddy's relationship is nothing more than a lover's quarrel. What could be seen in the evidence that could make you truly believe that they had a lover's quarrel? Him being controlling and forcing into acts or choices that she or others did not want is not a lover's quarrel. It is trafficking. It's thinking you have so much power that no one will touch you and you can always do what you want and be free. Mark, his attorney, who spoke out saying, the United States government, they start making this case as a takedown of a successful black man.
The United States government, they start making this case as a takedown of a successful black man.
This is a ploy, and the defense is clearly trying to spin a different narrative here. Epstein, Weinstein, R. Kelly, even freaking OJ, please. They are just trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel here. They want to take down a black man. The majority of jurors are dark-skinned. This is not about race or a man who happens to have made a career for himself. It's him using his status, power, and money to get people to do what he wants and disregard if the other denies it. And if they do, he has alternatives to force it. Violence, drugs, and again, I have to say this allegedly. Let's just face it, the government has got a lot more things to consider than trying to force one person because he's got so much money. If that was the case because of being a black man, Obama would never have been president, for Christ's sake. If the government didn't want dark skin and power, we never would have had a black president. This is about Diddy using his money and power of status to break laws, coerce and force women and possibly men to do what he wanted. He held their careers, their money, their homes, their travel, everything all in his hands, allegedly. This is not a man who just liked to be freaky behind doors. It's the control and treating humans like property. It should say a lot when some of his own family members have ended up walking out of court. People have said, oh, how can he allow his family to come? Well, for one, he's trying to show that he has support, given the illusion that if he has support, then he cannot be that bad, right? And for number two, they are adults, and they can choose to go or not go to court on their own accord. Jurors are 8 men and 4 women. Want to know why there's only 4? In my opinion, because a large portion of women were dismissed because they have dealt in some form, in some way of assault or trauma in their past before this trial, and this case would trigger them. Or the defense decided, oh no, they're not going to be able to ignore that this is not an abusive case. But hey, even I do understand that. However, for those like the whatever podcast of all men trying to say there are more good men than bad, that is true. There are more good men than bad. But if this is not the perfect example that bad men get around more than good men do, and therefore teaches majority of women to always be 100% on the defense side, then nothing is going to change their narrow, selfish minds, not even a snake bite. But that's another video for another day. It really seems like the defense is pulling anything from their rear ends to twist and manipulate. But again, that's my opinion and the take on this case. On top of this, he admits with TMZ that he didn't even understand what the 1,000 bottles of baby oil quote has to do with anything, or where the number came from.
Imagine it's thousands. I mean, and I'm not really sure what the baby oil has to do with anything. I don't know where the number 1,000 came.
Harvey, an attorney who's also from TMZ, had to tell him the info that the baby oil came from, quote, the U.S. attorney said it.
Baby oil, more than 1,000 bottles altogether.
Diddy's attorney continued to say that he can't imagine thousands. Let's just say it's a lot.
I don't think it was 1,000. Let's just say it's a lot, okay?
And then stumbles while trying to say, I don't know why it needs to be 1,000. 1 bottle of baby oil goes a long way. Just watch and listen and notice how his voice cracks.
They're essentially saying it's a lubricant for an orgy.
I guess. I don't know what you need 1,000. One bottle of baby oil goes a long way. I don't know what you need 1,000 for.
I mean, Diddy's own attorney cannot understand why his own client, who he is defending, had, quote, a lot of baby oil, especially if he states one bottle of baby oil can go a long way. But he cannot explain why his client has got a lot or thousands of baby oils. Sounds like an attorney who knows how to lie or play dumb. But again, that's just my opinion. And again, in my opinion, I think the smart guy is one of those kinds of attorneys that will lie to win a case and will completely twist a narrative. Now the question is, will the jurors view and see the witnesses as victims of trafficking, or will they fall to the defense's twisted narrative? Cases like these do not always fall on what the evidence presents or what evidence is provided. It mostly falls upon who the jurors will believe and not believe on the stand. And because of this, I do think that Diddy most likely will take the stand. He knows how to talk, how to make himself seem sympathetic. He's been in court before. And I think he's going to take what he has done before while on the stand to try to do the same here in this case and make himself appear innocent, sympathetic, and practically I just didn't know type of stance. One way or another though, once this case is over, it is going to change Hollywood. If he is not guilty, then trafficking laws will change for celebrities in Hollywood. If he is free, it will let every powerful person know that they are untouchable. It will let predators in Hollywood know that with enough money, you can buy silence and still be safe. If he is found guilty, then it will be the final warning shot to those types of bad people. Will our jurors sympathize with Diddy, or will they see through the smoke and mirrors of the defense? The feds have texts, receipts, and multiple witnesses to go through. If he is free, this case is going to tell everyone that here in America, money equals immunity. And again, the hotel video is just the beginning of proof of a pattern of control. Once they bring other evidence and witnesses, it's going to show that the pattern and routine of trafficking was there. Diddy trying to force and convince anyone for sexual acts, with as many as he allegedly has. That is also predatory recruitment. Diddy booking a room under a different name, bringing in a third party like an escort, using drugs to manipulate, blackmailing to manipulate, and threatening careers and even livelihood to manipulate, allegedly. This is not assault, though he is also guilty of that too. But this case is about trafficking, and Diddy's lawyers are trying to hide his client's accountability. The defense strategy is shady at best. They seem overly polite, like they are acting, and that alone comes across as very untrustworthy. So what do you think? Will he be innocent or guilty? Will the jurors be smart or easily manipulated? Let me know down in the comments.